Hi, I'm Kat.
I'm Arden 13.
Welcome to our show, World Tiger.
Building Dragon.
Today we are continuing with some of World Anvil's summer camp prompts.
Summer Camp is a program set up by the World Anvil team to promote world building as well as the community in general.
There'll be a total of 33 prompts all throughout the month of July, so if you're looking to win some prizes for your submissions, don't miss out.
World Anvil is a free in-browser tool that has everything that a world builder or a GM or even a writer may ever need.
They also have some really incredible subscription options, so make sure to check those out as well.
It's totally worth it and totally affordable. If you're interested, please consider checking them out. But in any case, I think it's time we got to the prompt. What is the prompt?
Today we get to write about a natural disaster that affected our world, something that went horribly, horribly wrong.
Okay.
I'm really excited.
You are.
I've been waiting for something to write about this, so I'm super pumped.
Well, I'm happy that you're pumped. For all of you at home who have no idea what Kat and I are doing, we have set ourselves up with a few parameters in order to complete this project and satiate her excitement. Each of us has 30 minutes to answer the prompt.
Each of our submissions have to be at minimum 300 words.
After the 300 words and our 30 minutes are up, the two of us will come back together and share what we came up with.
Some of our best ideas have come from our collaborations.
That they have. I'm ready for this. Are you ready for this?
Yes.
Let's do
Time
it.
skip!
And we're back.
We're back!
What do you feel about this one?
I really was excited to write about this event in my world. I did find it a little strange that we were writing this in a, I believe they called it a law. So it's more of like, maybe, from my brain, how this would really work would be if you were doing something more of a sci-fi world or like different laws as far as physics changed.
Mm-hmm.
And that's part of the world. But for what I was writing, most of my stuff just went into the vignette, because the other two segments they had didn't really affect my event too much. What about you?
I kind of felt the same way. I thought it was very strange that they were putting this in the setting of a law, but I hadn't put it together that they specifically, but I hadn't put it together that it would make a lot more sense as a sort of sci-fi cosmic kind of catastrophe of some kind.
Like it would affect gravity or something more more permanent, I guess?
Sure, yeah, something more perpetual, more constant.
Right.
Where I kind of went into this thinking, okay, a great natural disaster, where's my flood? Mm-hmm. Which I'm almost positive is what you talked about.
I
Is a
did.
flood. Okay, well, otherwise I think I still got to put in some pretty good information even in the two blocks. That's the other thing that kind of threw me off about this one. Usually the article types that we work with are, have 5 or 6 different sub prompts, but
then more tabs to go.
More tabs over. This one was no tabs over, 3 blocks to type it. Mm-hmm. And I was like, okay.
Guess
Pretty
it's
much.
all gonna be in the vignette.
Yeah.
But...
So, why don't you start first?
Alrighty, so I wrote about a great flood that hit Theatrum. The word or the event is called the Surge. And basically for this, I was able to really go into more of the myth as to why this event happened. So during the old age of Theatrum, gods walked among men. They were very, very present in their daily lives. You would have mortals go into these temples to appease the gods, and if the gods kind of liked what they saw, you had a chance to join their courts and become really just almost an immortal and just live with the gods for the rest of your life because you appeased them.
Talk about job security.
I know. So, during this time, there was a young woman named Isadora. I've talked about her when we did the video about the, it was an item. I'm trying to remember.
It was a legendary artifact. It was episode 2, I do believe.
Yes, it was a legendary artifact. So this is that same Isadora. And so, in essence, yes, in essence, what happened was, during this time, Isadora caught the eye of Keiko, the god of tempest, storms, destruction, natural disasters, all that stuff. He came to her, professed his love, said, "Hey, you're pretty great, you should do X, Y, and Z," and she said no, that she actually had a love who was away fighting in a forgotten war. Furious and kind of hurting his pride a little bit, Keiko called upon his daughter, Kai-Fen, the goddess of war, and kind of said, hey, I need you to take out this guy. And she did. And so Kai-Fen...
Godly pettiness.
Yes. So Kai-Fen had Isidora's lover cut down in battle. When she heard about this news, Isidora flung herself into the oceans to join her love in the Court of Death, or the Court of Xenu. Because once you die, you are automatically, unless you appeased a god, you are automatically indoctrinated into the God of Death's court. However, upon her death, Keiko gave her the title of Infernal of Oceans, basically meaning Isidora would never be able to join her love in the courts of Xenu. She would forever be bound to Keiko's court and to serve him and be with him for forever. And so she did not like that. And so in her rage and in her fury, and so in her rage and in her fury, because she was made Infernal of the Oceans, she was 100% in control. It was almost one of those where Keiko was like, hey, I see you're kind of upset. Have all the power of the oceans. Maybe that'll make it better. And instead, Isidora raised the seas of Theatrum, flooding the entire world and causing this great surge. During this time, the gods of Theatrum started to shelter mortals into their Godstone temples, or their kind of where they lived, to shelter all the mortals and put them into a dormant state until a new age could begin, and that age is called the Age of Dreams. This is where Kidal, Lord of Dragons, flew around and instructed those of his brood to collect people that were still in the water and bring them to safety. Some mortals were quick enough to make it underground. Don't know what happened to them. Guess we'll find out. And so, among those, once all of the mortals were, as many mortals as possible were saved, that is when the construction of the Isidora's bonds began, and that is when the gods of crafting kind of came together and made those bonds. So what they did was they bound her to Keiko's moon, where his court was, and used a good amount of the god's strength to push Keiko's moon furthest away from Theatrum, so that she would have as little power as possible over the oceans. She still has power over the oceans, but because she's so far away from Theatrum, it's just not quite as strong. And so that is the tale of the surge, and how all of Theatrum, when they pushed Keiko's moon away, that is when the floods started to recede over Theatrum, and a new age began. So a lot of the time when they talk about kind of like in art, like if people want to depict this great flood, the seas will kind of go from this light blue, beautiful colors to this dark, terrifying sea as it rises up, and there's dark, shadowy creatures within the watery depths, and just this horrifying shift of what Theatrum used to be, which was an age of peace and great time, and then because of Isidora, the waters turned dark and cold and scary again.
Well, because of Keiko and
yeah.
hubris.
No, it's 100% Keiko's fault. No. He, that was another thing that I put, right before she was bound, and one of the things, the reason why part of the chains of Isidora's bonds fell back onto Theatrum is because she used the last of her strength to take Keiko's Godstone, which is kind of like their temples that were on Theatrum, and basically took a wave and cut it off from the rest of Theatrum and pushed it further into the oceans, so that, one, he couldn't house any mortals, meaning that once mortals returned back to Theatrum, he wasn't really worshipped, so a lot of his power has been cut down since the old age, just because not a lot of people know who he is. So get good, Keiko, and deal with that. So GG,
no read.
Yeah, no, you're done. You messed up. You something real bad. You did something real bad, and you paid the consequences for it.
Ooh.
But yeah, I think the only other part that I kind of liked was they had a section on there called Localisation.
Mm-hmm.
And because it was a giant flood, there wasn't too much I could talk about. Like, it was all of Theatrum.
Mm-hmm.
However, a lot of people have been able to connect, a lot of the scholars of Theatrum have been able to connect as to how bad this flood was, is because even in the highest parts of Theatrum, like in the tallest mountains, down to the driest parts where no water touches, you can still, if you dig deep enough, find fish bones and shells and any other evidence of water life that had existed for that Age of Dreams. But yeah, the Surge. It is the bringing of a new era.
So I have a question.
Mm-hmm.
And this is in relation here, but also just kind of, now you've piqued my interest with a little bit of lore. So, because Keikos Moonstone, or Godstone?
Yeah, same thing.
Same thing? Okay, because it was a temple.
Mm-hmm.
Because that was cut off by Isidora and, like, submerged into the sea, he couldn't receive any prayers anymore?
It wasn't... So, for how the gods work in Theatrum is a lot of their power comes from how much they're worshipped and acknowledged by mortals.
Right.
Which is why in the Old Age they worked very closely together. After the Old Age it was kind of like, okay, we have to do just enough to get their praises, but not enough to really affect their lives, because if we do, then we'll have another case like Isidora. So... yes and no. It wasn't necessarily that his temple was submerged, it was just that it was taken off the main continent of Theatrum.
Right, and so everything else is
Ocean.
Ocean.
Yes.
So they can't get to his moonstone, so they can't properly praise or learn about him.
Right.
So it just diminishes. Okay, that makes more sense.
So he's kind of just... I mean, he was king of the gods in the Old Age. So he is still very, very powerful. It is just now in this new age, it has kind of become this sad, like, shadow of a god, of, like, what used to be this almighty, powerful god of destruction and natural disasters has kind of just withered away. And you don't really... Not a lot of people worship him or think... I mean, they know he exists, but it's more of like... That was an old god that doesn't exist anymore. He do exist, just no one cares.
GG no read.
Yeah.
Wow.
But yeah, that is the Surge, and that is the full story of Isidora and why she was bound to Keikos Moon. If you want to learn more about the bonds, you can go check out on our second episode, right?
It should be episode 2.
Episode 2, yeah. It'll be in the description, so you can go check that out. But yeah, that was my natural disaster.
Very nice.
What about you?
Okay, so again, I kind of struggled a little bit with the form itself. It just seemed a little bit strange in how I could translate it well. But the natural disaster that I discussed is called the Scragg Breach. Now, in the continent of Kadras, which is in the southeastern section of Ellecrid, there's an area called the Great Scragg Desert. It's massive, it's large, it was once home and dominion to the ancient Blue Dragon clan until the Breach. Basically, what is understood is that... I need to stop hitting the table. What is understood is that beneath... there is an Underdark in Ellecrid, and directly beneath the Scragg Desert is the capital of the Underdark, the city of Tarman Muir. And what had happened was, is that during the age of Charter Magic, their experimentations with that volatile and expansive form of magic and technology became a little too far-reaching. They tried to do something that they really shouldn't do because they didn't have the technology to deal with it. And in doing so, they essentially shattered the earth above the city, all the way up to the surface, and then another 100 to 300 miles out to sea, creating this giant chasm that leads directly down into the Underdark.
Oh my god.
With a variety of smaller, like, cracks and crevices branching off. So it's not 300 miles, it's 100 miles out to sea from Tarman Muir, from where it is in Kadras, below, out to sea. However, it is 300 square miles. Did I say 100 feet?
You did.
100 miles.
I was like,
Thank you for checking. Thank you for stopping me. The whole Scragg is 300 square miles of territory. And why it is such a great big deal is it's an explosion essentially that shook the world itself. It created this landmark, this massive landmark. But the two worst things is that creatures of unknown origin that had not ever been documented even in the Underdark came out of the breach and were swimming in this noxious fume and like mist essentially that also came out of the breach. So the Twisted SCrag is the name of the territory now. There's the Scragg Desert around it, but this specific area is known as the Twisted SCrag. Pluming and billowing out of the canyon of the chasm itself is this noxious, toxic fumes and gas that if you breathe it for too long, you will die. But if that's not horrifying enough, there are giant creatures that are like flying or swimming through this noxious fume. And you can't see them, you can only hear them.
don't like that.
Until they pounce.
Yeah.
Or you are stupid enough to like climb down into the Scragg and then all of a sudden this thing just flies by you and eats you. So it's a problem.
Yeah.
The other problem that I wanted to mention in here is the fact that this territory used to be the dominion of the Blue Dragons. They had to leave.
Yeah.
They could not fight these things. The entirety of the Blue Dragon clan could not fight these monsters.
Was it that they couldn't fight the monsters with the noxious gas, or was it just they could not fight the monsters?
Little of both. The noxious gas was like choking them and constricting them, like they couldn't properly breathe, and these monsters wouldn't come out of the gas.
The gas.
So it works in two different ways.
Right.
Where it's nice that they don't come out of the gas, but they do come out of the gas every so often if there is prey nearby, and they'll just pounce, grab it, and go
drag
right
it
back in.
Yeah.
So, and they're massive. They're huge. And to be frankly honest, like I have like ideas in my head of what they look like. For the kids at home, oh no, I forget what the reference I was gonna make. Think the weird living spaceships from Star Wars, that group of people. I forget their name. They're like anti-force sensitive or something like that. They're in the Legends continuity at this point. Oh my god, what are they called? The Yuzon Vong. The Yuzon Vong. Those ships, the ships that they fly around in, the organic like creatures. Yeah, think that, only a little bit smaller. The Yuzon Vong. They're try spelling it. It's weird. It's tough.
Oh, there it goes. Okay.
Yeah. But so I talked about the Scragg Desert. The localization, I focused more, or I guess we have manifestation and localization.
Sorry, I just looked them up. That?
So those are the Yuzon Vong. Look up their ships. Look at their spaceships.
Oh no.
Yeah.
Oh no.
Oh yeah.
No, thank you.
In the manifestation of this calamity, it obviously came in the form of a great chasm, a great canyon, that led all the way down to the Underdark. There's this noxious mist that lies heavy over the area. Also, it cascaded out into the ocean. So there's like a small barrier of this. There's a small section of the ocean around where this comes out that is referred to as the Noxious Sea, because it has just been polluted and ruined by this water. That was the manifestation. I really don't have a whole lot to say much more about this. Localization, basically the blue dragons had to leave. The place is pretty much desolate. Any plants or animals that were native to the area, which is now the Twisted SCrag, have utterly just abandoned it.
Right.
And foolhardy are those who try to explore it.
No, thank you.
Yeah, it's not a great time. So mine was a lot more, I guess, I don't want to say simplistic, but in comparison to yours had a lot more
Mine was
depth
just,
to it.
well, because mine was a world event. Like, this brought about a new age.
Right.
This was still a huge thing because it shook the world.
The only, I guess, the repercussions, the biggest repercussions of this, besides the Blue Dragon clan having to leave their ancestral home, is the city of Tarman Muir was utterly abandoned.
Yeah.
And pretty much most of the Underdark was abandoned because of this. Because the fumes.
About that. Yeah.
Because the fumes just went through the caverns.
God, yeah.
And they had to get out.
Oh gosh. No, thank you.
Unless you, with the exception of, the places that have the large, mushrooms underground that can, absorb all that. But everywhere else that didn't have those mushrooms had to GTFO.
No.
Like, woo! It's bad.
Bad times. Yeah.
That's what I came up with.
That's what I came up with.
Thank you so much for joining us today. Let us know in the comments below something that you enjoyed about today's video, or if you have an idea that you're willing to share.
If you enjoyed today's video, please make sure to hit all those buttons that everyone else bugs you about. We'd love for you to join our lunch table.
And go check out World Anvil if you're interested.
You guys have been great. I'm Kat.
I'm Arden13. I'm still waiting on that ramen.
We'll see you next time.
Bye!